everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Phil Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Phil, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call today. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We have so much to unravel today, don't we?
This call could go any way of, a dozen different directions. So
we'll start with one and we may veer, right? So thinking about your life, if you had to say one thing that really, really stands out about everything you've accomplished, and then, of course, I'm going to get into your childhood, but one thing that you can say, and I don't want to be morbid here, but if you were to die in 10 minutes, even if I was to die in 10 minutes, what's that one thing that you would be so proud of?
I think the obvious answer is, of course, the kids. But from a business point of view, the fact that we set up a business from nothing over an 18-year period. We grew it to the point where a PLC was so impressed that they wanted to give us, a big pile of money for it. And I think, you've got to be proud of doing something like that.
I like that, a big pile of money.
Well, it's a bit smaller now.
Of course, you've used your shovel to use some, right?
Yeah.
So, and I definitely want to talk about that a little bit later on. But let's get into little Phil, right? Where did you grow up when you were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old? What were you doing then? Who would you say, even at that early age, that you recollect was an influence in your life?
That's a good question, actually. As people could probably tell from my accent, I'm from the UK. I live in a city called Leeds. We have a fantastic football team here. Well, fantastic sometimes, and sometimes they're not.
Yes.
And actually, that's been one of the constants for me is the football team. So when I was 5, 6, 7, all I wanted to do was play football, play soccer. I was never good enough to make it on. I was never anywhere close to making it as a pro, but that would have been my dream at the time. I'm still playing twice a week now with friends. I'm actually got to a point now where I'm actually playing with friends and sons of friends, which is sort of gives you a pointer of my age. But I think from a young age, I think I don't. You hear stories of people say, "Oh, I wanted to do this from a young age. I wanted to do that from a young age." And I think we'll come on to this later. But I had no real drive or burning desire to do something other than play soccer. Which was a fun thing, but it'd be great to do it professionally, but it wasn't going to happen.
It's very funny. I'm Colombian, so I grew up in Colombia, and as a child, I wanted to play soccer, and I wasn't running around with kids. So it was always like with older people, and they would say, "Oh, let's let him play." They didn't like it when I played, because for me to try to get the soccer ball, I would be kicking their shins. And they didn't like it. They're like, "Hit the soccer ball, not my shins." And that's how I started learning hey, I know how to get the ball. If I kick their shins, they're going to give up the ball. So I got really strong shins.
Yeah, I mean, when you're it's part. playing soccer, it's part of developing. You play with older kids and you think, I either get bullied or I stand up for myself.
Yeah, yeah. But I was playing with men, so it was kind of funny as a kid. And when I got older, we used to play. I came to the U.S. and even at 8, 9 years old, we used to play on the streets. And there was a kid who was older than us. He was maybe 5, 6 years older than us, and his name was Oscar. It still is. He was scouted by the Cosmos, the indoor soccer
New
team.
York, yeah, it's New York Cosmos, wasn't it?
Yes. And at the time, it was a lot of money. They gave him to start $90,000. This is back in 19, I'm thinking like 1970 something, right?
Cosmos, it would have been the 70s, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah, like in the 70s, late 70s. And what wound up happening is he started playing. He didn't like it. He goes, I don't like the AstroTurf. I don't like playing indoors. I like playing out here with you guys. So he gave it up. Like, what are you crazy? They give you all this money. They give you all this clothes, all the stuff, as many soccer balls as you want to play with. And you're here playing on the street with us. What's wrong with you? But he was an exceptional player.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. We watch all types of sports, and we go, how did that guy not do that? It's easy, and actually, it is hard, and it's the people who are elite that get through. And even the best kid you play baseball with, or you play football or hockey with, they have to be so high up there to get anywhere close to elite level. But it's a dream. It's a dream for everybody.
It is, it is. And for this poor kid, I mean, he didn't realize so what, you tough it out for a little bit, right? You don't like the AstroTurf, don't worry. Maybe you'll go to the indoor. That's the indoor soccer team that hired. Maybe eventually you get to but he didn't stick it out. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
A lot of people have dreams, but they don't know how to facilitate it, right? And that's something that you have done. Who would you say at that early age, you wanted to play soccer, you were playing soccer, you wanted to be an athlete? Who were your biggest influencers back then?
I think back then, particularly when you're that age, I think your only real influence is your immediate family, your parents. I got into soccer because my dad was into soccer and his dad was into soccer, although they follow a different football team to me. So I think they were the key influences, and probably there were probably teachers, maybe a bit sort of teenage years were probably more of an influence. But I think that early, you're just a sponge and you don't realize where what the influences are, and you'll find things many years ago, and your belief systems and what you see as right and wrong and all those sorts of things and that sort of stuff, I think probably seeps into you at a very early age, but you don't realize. So I think there's nothing overt that I could say, oh, this guy or that guy. It's parents and school teachers, really. I think they're the only influence you have at that age. And then as you get older, things like music and culture start becoming an influence. And as your horizons expand, you see more than your local. I mean, you've gone from Colombia to the US. I was in the same, probably 3 square miles for the first 20 years of my life. But as you expand, you get more influences from different places.
Yeah. So when did you realize that business was something that you wanted to get into? Because you obviously, you've done marketing, you've done different things. You sold to PLC or PCL, right? And what was that moment in time that you said, because you could have been a mechanic, you could have been a baker, you could have been anything, but what was the attraction in business?
It's funny actually looking back. There wasn't. I was very shy as a kid,
Mm.
very, very shy. And it probably wasn't until I got to university that I sort of really came out of my skin. But I left university with no idea what I wanted to do,
Mm.
and ended up in a local accountancy firm as a trainee, which I only managed to last a year at.
Gotcha.
There were aspects of it I enjoyed. I was quite good at maths, so the sort of financial, older accountants listening will understand double entry bookkeeping and that type of stuff, the old school. So I liked that, but I left there, and even now I don't know how I got into it. I ended up selling advertising space on magazines, on business magazines. So for this sort of shy kid to be out there selling advertising was,
Yeah.
almost I was sitting there going, how the hell have
How the
I ended up
heck?
doing this?
Right.
And a lot of my career there wasn't a big master plan. There wasn't this big, shining star that I thought, right, that's what I've got to do. But I think my career went from selling advertising space to working in an ad agency. And all of that, I mean, that was probably over a 10, 12-year period.
Mm.
Within that, I think my interest in business sort of seeped in.
Right.
I always say to people, particularly if you're any type of business, you're learning how to sell is a really important skill. And I think that underlies a lot of stuff. And that's not sort of snake oil salesman type selling.
Right.
It's, proper basics of understanding, features and benefits and how I can help a client with a problem, and all the sort of bigger issues of selling.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the selling and then getting into advertising, which again was interesting. But then when you work in an ad agency, you then come across lots and lots of different types of businesses. And, you're only going to stick it in an ad agency if, and I was on the sort of client facing side, you're only going to stick it if you're interested in business or interested in what the clients are doing. So it sort of happened by osmosis, really, that business was where I ended up. It wasn't like I say, you hear these people saying, oh, I used to sell sweets at school in the playground, and I always knew I was going to, you hear this story all the time. I mean, how many people are selling sweets in playgrounds? I wasn't like that at all. And it sort of happened.
I was the one buying the sweets.
Oh, there you go. So was I.
Right. When you think about the fact that you went from being so shy and then having to talk to so many people because you're selling advertisements for a magazine, and then eventually going into the people who were creating the advertising, right? So you went from one spectrum to the other to seeing the behind the scenes, how things get done. Because you're saying, hey, you want to be in this magazine. Now you're saying you're in this magazine because of what we're going to do for you, right? So it's a different turnaround. It's a different perspective, if you will, from the same concept, marketing, right?
Yeah. And one of the things I struggled with, and actually looking back, it's probably all within the same sort of spectrum of imposter syndrome. But when I was in the ad agency, I was surrounded by a lot of people who had done marketing degrees and had a background in marketing, or creatives who'd done, creative art school and all that sort of thing. Whereas I just have arrived there and had an interest in marketing, but wasn't a marketeer per se. And again, I now, one of the things I do is I go into schools and talk to kids about careers. And one of the things I say is, as you go through your career, you need to pick skills up as you go along. And this was sort of part of my development, was just picking stuff up as I went along. So on one hand, I spent 10 years selling advertising, so I've got a different aspect of where we're going. But on the other hand, I'm sitting around with people who've got marketing degrees and master's degrees, and they're experts in marketing. And I'm thinking, shit, I'm just making it up as I go along. So I was always doing lots of reading of marketing magazines and trying to sort of teach myself, because I felt I didn't belong.
I get that. It's very interesting that you even say that, because I've been in rooms where people are book smart. And that's what you were facing. You were facing probably book smart people. They have all these degrees, but you were in the trenches. I rather, to be honest with you, be with people who are in the trenches. Why? Because they know how it works. You know, you
Yeah.
can't be reading about an attack in war and know exactly all the conditions, because it may be muddy, it may be cold, it may be windy, it may be the sun is in your eyes. So all these different things, if you're thinking of battle, you're battle driven, you're battle proven. And I think that's where you stood above all those other people, right? If you will, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. And yeah, that sort of reminds me of that famous quote from Mike Tyson. You know, everybody has a plan until you punch him in the face.
Right. That's right. Nobody wants to get punched in the face, even Mike Tyson, but he's
Yeah.
willing to take the hit. That's the difference. How many people are willing to take the hit because they understand that taking the hit is just a step towards victory. But if you don't take the hit, you'll never know what that victory is like.
Yeah.
Right?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So when you were in the advertising business, if you will, right? One of the trench guys, I'm going to call you. You saw different opportunities coming your way, different ideas, different concepts, because you dealt with so many different companies, right? It wasn't one. It could have been somebody coming in, they want to sell their toothpaste, somebody wants to sell their radio, somebody else wants to sell their tires, somebody else wants to sell homes. Whatever it is that they wanted to do, you had to figure out a way to have people understand that I need this. This is what I want. So all of a sudden, you became the middleman to that candy seller, right? And that's what
Yeah.
advertising really is, especially for an agency, right?
Yeah. It's great because you're quite right. My portfolio was, I had cars, I had drinks, I had double glazing, we had a coach company. We had clients coming backwards and forwards all the time. So you have to understand the concept of, okay, what's your product? What's your message? Who's the audience? How do you best get that message to that audience? And that's all marketing and advertising is. And you'll have probably had people come to you, or you've heard people say, I need to be on TikTok. Well, you don't necessarily need to be on TikTok because your audience might not be on TikTok. So people often come at advertising and marketing and media from the wrong direction. We used to have, back when I was in the ad agency, we had people say, I need to be on TV. Well, why do you need to be on TV? They're looking down the telescope from the wrong end. If their audience isn't watching TV, they don't need to be on TV. And I think that's one of the things that dovetails quite nicely with sales, because a salesperson doesn't start with, I've got this pen. Can I sell you it? It's, Mr. Client, what's your issue? This pen is no good to you if you've only got a laptop. However, this pen is invaluable to you if, we're sitting in a pub and I've just told you a brilliant idea and you've got a piece of paper and nothing to write with. So it solves your problem. Whereas if you had your laptop with you, you don't need the pen. So I don't start with, I've got a pen, I want to sell it to you. I start with, what's your issue? How can I solve it? And that's how sales works. That's how advertising works. That's how marketing works. And obviously we'll come on to this. It's how coaching works as well.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I love the analogy of having the napkin and no pen. And I've seen that. I've been a victim of it myself, where somebody's like, hey, you have a pen? No, you have a pen. And then you start asking the waiter and they're like, wait, I'll get you one. But
yeah,
even
but
if
then
you have your
then that pen, that's
valuable.
$100. That's $100 pen now.
Or more. It could be $1 million pen.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. What if you have your laptop and it dies? Now what do you need? Laptop
now
is
I can
no
sell
good.
you. I can sell you a power bank. That's $100 as well.
So it's what we put value in at the time when it's needed. That's what I'm hearing you say, right?
Sure.
Because a pen is useless, right? If you're having a sword fight, a pen is useless in the pool if you're swimming, right? But it is invaluable if you need to sign a contract, if you need to sign something, if you need to take an order, right? Because if you have to write up the order, right? If you have a laptop, yeah, maybe you can do it that way. If it's digital, that's fine. So a lot of times we now think that we don't need a pen. But to me, look, I have so many different pens. Here we go. I have this one here. I got that one there. I got different pens here. I'm not kidding. Look at this. You think I'm kidding? Look at all the different kinds of pens holders I have. For me, a pen, and I'm a martial artist, but sometimes a pen is mightier than the sword, and that's the old saying, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, I think I even have another thing of pens over there. Without joking about the pen, it's for me, writing it is so much different than me typing on a computer, either a laptop, or even on a phone, or even speaking into a recording device. Because for me, writing does two things. I visually see it, but I imprint it in my brain. So that is why I love writing. That's why I have to have so many of them. Because, hey, you know what? One dies out. I got to keep going. Get me another one. So for me, it's important. Right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm old school, and I love, and we did it a lot with my business. We did it a lot. I do it all the time. I'm a great brainstormer. So just give me a piece of paper and do a sort of spider drawing, and things go off. But you can't. Yeah, I'm sure you can do it on on a laptop or whatever.
Sure you
But just
can.
a pen and a paper. That's down to basics.
Yeah. I had a gentleman who did brain analogy, and that's how he did his marketing. So for example, and I'm sure you know all about this stuff, but he had a client who was not getting sales on it was for a restaurant. Now he did it for a restaurant, he did it for a lawyer. For the lawyer, it was an image of the contract, but the pen was on one side. The picture of the pen was on one side.
Yeah.
The minute he put the pen on the other side, the lawyer got more deals. Same thing with the restaurant. The fork was on one side. When he put it on the other side, they got more sales. So he goes, it's where our eyes focus. So it depends on if people are righty or lefty, and what's the majority of people. As an advertiser, we all know righty, right? We all know that different ideas come to different people at different times of the day. So when is it better to present certain things, right? At 3 a.m, how many audience are you going to have, right? Compared to 6 p.m., right? Or 7 p.m. So those are so many different and I love advertising. I love marketing. I love the idea of how do we get someone to believe in what we believe, right?
Yep. And it is. I always think it's about solving their problem.
Correct.
Yeah, people will only pay for things. If we get right down to basic economics, what problem does this solve, and am I willing to pay for it, or how much am I willing to pay for it?
That's
now
right.
that problem might be speed, or it might be value, or it might be quality. It's also you can get so deep. I'm no retail specialist or anything like that, but you go into the situation of, okay, why would I buy something? In your case, what's the difference between buying it at Amazon, Walmart, or the guy in the corner shop down the road? Same product. Now, Amazon, it might be, I need it now. Walmart might be, I've actually got to buy 100 different things, so it's one of them. The guy down the shop might be, actually, I want to support a local entrepreneur, and actually it's no price difference, so I'll go and see him, or I'm out walking the dog and I'll pop in. Same product, but the different aspect of the product is when you want it or how you want it. So it's how does the problem get solved?
Definitely. When we think about bringing different ideas, concepts, and you just talked about solving someone's problem, right? Because whether we like it or not, we all have problems. And it's always good to have someone say, hey, you know what? I have a solution for you. Now, that's the person we want to hear. Now, their solution may be one-sided, which is better for them, but not for you. So we need to also listen carefully to whose problem is going to be solved. Is it their wallet is too thin, or is it that they're really looking to solve our problem, right?
Sure. And it is fascinating. And you know, we'll go back to coaching, and it, you know, once you get to that personal problem, I don't mean a personal problem, the problem of the person, then it's okay, what is their problem? What's the sticking point? What's the issue they've come across? Why do they need help? And then it's offering them a solution.
Right.
And this is why, you know, different coaches, you know, I might be right for one client and you might be right for somebody else, because you match the skill set of solving their problem. Okay. And this is why coaches all, you know, I've not been doing it that long, but this is why coaches do discovery calls. You know,
that's right.
Let's find out what the issue is. It's not like, right, I'm a coach, I can solve your problem. Now tell me what it is. You know, no, it doesn't work like that.
That's a bad coach.
yeah. And then you get into coaching solutions. You know, I've got this module of 10 modules. I'm going to sell you it. Well, it doesn't solve my problem. Yeah, but I need to sell you this 10 module solution.
Right. It doesn't work. Can I share with you an event that we have coming up in May?
Of course you can.
Thank you. Here we go.
Are you ready for an unforgettable experience that will inspire and motivate you? Look no further than Heroes Rising. This virtual event will showcase some of the speakers who will grace our stage in July. Join us May 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Heroes Rising brings together a lineup of incredible speakers and thought leaders who will share their wisdom and insights on how to become the hero of your own story. With topics ranging from personal development and leadership to entrepreneurship and social impact, this event has something for everyone who wants to make a positive difference in the world. Whether you're an aspiring leader, an entrepreneur, or simply someone who wants to be inspired and motivated, Heroes Rising is the perfect opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals and learn from some of the most influential voices in the industry. Don't miss your chance to be a part of this transformative experience. Get your tickets now and join us for Heroes Rising on May 12th.
Sounds like fun, right?
The guy at the end, the last guy at the end, he looks good.
we like him. You know, one of the things that we are doing definitely is bringing different thought leaders, different ideas, different concepts, and that's definitely why I'm excited to talk to you, because I don't know if you want to come all the way from the UK, but I think you should, and you should be on our stage, you know, just to share your knowledge with everyone. So let's take a minute, if you will, and talk about your gaming, right? You went into the gaming, online gaming, or gambling, if you will, business, and then that really made a difference for you in a way.
Yeah.
What did that come across the marketing aspect, and you go, I want it in, or was that a different way that you found it?
Yeah, there were a couple of things at the time. So we have to go all the way back to 1999, 2000. So we're going back a while now. I'd been in an ad agency for 6 years at that point, and anybody who's worked in an ad agency, you know, you deal with a client and you come up with the creative ideas. It might be TV, it might be posters, it might be radio, whatever it is. And you put, you know, 3 options in front of them and say, do you want version A, version B, version C? And they say, actually, doesn't, for me as the agency guy, it doesn't matter. It's just like, just tell me which one you want us to do and we'll produce it. And I got to the point where I thought, actually, I'd like to be the decision maker. I'd like to be on the other side of the table and go client side. So I had that in one side of my head. At that time, as an agency, we just started getting involved with what people would now call a digital agency, but at the time was very, very early. We had clients coming to us and saying, can you make me one of these newfangled websites that I've read about? So I got involved with the digital side of things, and I wanted to go client side. And this is going to sound really strange, but at the time I thought, this internet, there might be some future in this. There might be could be some legs in it. But I wasn't sure. So I wanted to get into the internet business on the client side, but with a bit of a safety net. So I ended up joining a big company who were based in the UK. I think they're in the US now, called William Hill, who were a sports book. So they had, as we would all know, as just gambling offices, but they got into online sports betting. And they were just about to get into online casino. And I was recruited to launch their online casino product. So that's how I ended up in online gambling, was the interest in thinking, this internet might have some legs, and I want to go client side, but I want to go client side on the internet, but with a safety net of a big company. So that's how I got into it initially. That was my start point.
Well, the first time I heard about online gambling is I was at my friend's house, and his grandmother was on the computer, and she's screaming and yelling, and I'm like, what is going on? He goes, it's just grandma. She's gambling. I'm like, she's gambling on the computer? I'm like, you sure she's not on one of those 1-900 numbers? So he's no, she's gambling. She's playing, I don't know if it was roulette or cards or something. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Because you can only imagine at that time how people got hooked, right? Because people get hooked on gambling. I mean, look at Las Vegas in the US, right? Is there a place in the UK that has in-person gambling as big as Las Vegas?
There's nothing like Las Vegas. So we have casinos in all the major cities, but we don't have a city based on gambling like Vegas is. I know Vegas tells you it's not. It's a destination, and there's shows and all that stuff. No, it's not. You just go for gambling. That's all you do. And obviously you got Atlantic City as well. So we've got nothing like there over here.
Gotcha. It's funny because I love Las Vegas, but I'm not much of a gambler. I go there, I sit by the pool, and that's when I chill, right? And like I go and I hang out with some fighters and we fight and stuff like that. But also I go to all the shows. They have the best shows. I think they took over Broadway, because in New York City, everybody knows Broadway. But in Las Vegas, every hotel has like all these lavish shows, and Cirque du Soleil and Blue Man Group and all these different, comedy and whatever you want to see. It's there. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I although I worked in the gambling industry for 20 years, I'm not a gambler. Just doesn't float my boat at all. And I've never been to Vegas as well, which is weird. I've never been. As somebody who's worked in the gambling industry, I've never been to Vegas. I will go. So yeah, it's sort of weird for me. So I wasn't looking to get into gambling. I wasn't, like I say, I wasn't a gambler. It was just the way, the cards fell, to use an analogy.
Yeah, literally. I love it. So what happened after you left William Hill?
Yeah. So what happened was, so I joined William Hill. We launched this online casino, and then the online gaming space was expanding, and we came across online bingo. And the board of directors said to me, look, you're in casino. Can you do as a report on the bingo sector and what the opportunities are? Do you think we could get involved and all that sort of stuff, which I did. And at the time they decided not to do it, which is fair enough, because if you think about it, and this is very general, sportsbook and casino is very younger and male. And obviously bingo is older and female. So it's not only is it a different product, it's in a different sector of the market. Anyway, I left the business at the end of that year and was working as a consultant in online gaming. And somebody came to me and said, I want to get to online I want to get into online gaming. It's it's going to be the next big thing. And I said, you know what? You want to get into bingo, online bingos. That's the next big thing in online gaming. And about 48 hours later, I thought, I've just recommended something to somebody. Why don't I do it? So what I did was I took this report that I'd done, sort of shuffled it around a bit, turned it around, and turned it into a pitch document to raise funding for what would have been the UK's first pay-to-play online bingo site, because it was only in the US at the time. So I took this out to the market, real-life Shark Tank. We call it Dragon's Den over here, but Shark Tank in real life. And got nothing, got no support whatsoever. Okay, for various macro reasons. But what I'd done is I built a very basic website which listed all the US bingo sites that were out there at the time, and had a very simple pop-up questionnaire on there to get some data about the demographics, so that when I did my presentations in this pitch, I could say, this is the demographic of the audience, this is how much they spend, this is how frequently they play. So I at least sounded like I knew what I was talking about.
You did your homework.
Yeah. And obviously it's part of, when you do a pitch, you've got to understand your market. So I'd done that. But what happened was a number of the US sites that were listed on this website I'd built contacted me over some time and said, can we advertise on your website? And this is where everything sort of falls together. So I thought, hang on a minute, I've sold advertising in magazines. It can't be that hard to sell advertising on a website. So I said, look, send me some money, because obviously a lot of this was offshore. So it was places like Antigua, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, all this sort of stuff. Send me the money first, then I'll run the ads, which they did. And we started putting advertising on this website, and the market expanded. And as the market expanded, our website expanded and more advertisers came on. And that was the business. The business started completely and utterly by accident. And nowadays I could sit there and go, oh yes, I could see the future and I pivoted. Absolutely. Sorry, I can't tell you that lie. It's not true. It's one of those things that happened.
So it was almost by accident, right? Because you were suggesting it to someone else, and then it was your research, your study. Yeah. Let me find out. And then it paid dividends, didn't it?
Yeah. And the other thing, and I talk to clients about this a lot. I talk about this on podcasts and things, is at the time I was also looking for a proper job. And I got offered a proper job in a digital agency. Nice job, car, salary, the whole package. And I went in to see them on the Friday before the Monday I was due to start, and said, I can't take this job. I've got this sort of nascent business that's happening, and didn't take it. Now that's a real sliding doors moment, because lots and lots of people have opportunities. I mean, it wasn't a fully formed opportunity, but have an opportunity that falls in their lap, and either they don't recognize it, or they don't take the risk, or for whatever reason they can't do it. And I could have quite easily taken that job. I had 2 young kids at the time.
Right.
It was nice, safe salary, all that sort of stuff. It was basically myself and my wife in the business initially. We took the decision to go, no, let's roll the dice. Sorry, using another gambling analogy. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. But yeah, real proper sliding doors moment in my life, that.
Wow. But, I like the fact that you included your wife in this decision, because it impacted her as well, right?
Yeah, with the first, must be 4, 5, maybe 6 years, she was pretty much full-time in the business as well. It was, put the kids to bed. And also for the first 5 years, all our business was in the US. So it's obviously you got time difference. So we put the kids to bed, right? Fire up the computers, New York's been up for 3 or 4 hours. The West Coast is just waking up. Let's go for it. So we'd be working through the night. And then in the morning, UK time, I take the kids to school, a bit of a breather. and then we sort of go again. I think it was New York was I think it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. New York was just about waking up, so that's when the work started.
Right. It's very interesting because I talk to people all over the world, and for me, sometimes I'm talking to them, they're 6 hours ahead, sometimes it's 13 hours, sometimes it's 15 hours. And so it's always what is going on in the world. And so I'm always saying, hey, what's the lotto numbers? I'm just kidding, because obviously they're ahead of me. So
tomorrow's lottery's just been drawn here, so you can buy them.
But so when we think about online gambling, you guys took a chance, you gambled, if you will, right? You gambled on a chance to make it work. And when I didn't know your wife was in the business, but when I said it would affect her too, because a lot of people make a decision business-wise without thinking of their family. What's the effect that it's going to have on their family? Do I have to work on the weekends? That's going to take time away from the kids, take away time from my wife or my husband. So a lot of people make those decisions without consulting the family. And I just said, I'm glad that you did that, because it just goes to show that family, to me, is extremely important.
Yeah, it was. She's a trained teacher, and it was like, right, we're both all in on this. I don't think we ever sort of overtly decided, shall we do it, shall we not do it? It's just like, this is happening. Let's get on with it. And she was like, right, she was all in on it as well. So it was great. And for throughout the whole time, she was still, although she wasn't working full time on the business, she was involved. She was involved in all the recruitment. And she regularly tells me the one recruitment mistake we made was the one interview she wasn't in. That was my fault. And because it was an international industry, it meant when we were going away to conferences and meeting clients and stuff like that, she was coming with. So there's obviously an upside of the travel, but it meant we were together. The downside is the kids have to stay with grandparents and all that sort of stuff. But I think having both of us sort of facing the same direction, pushing the same direction, really, really helped.
Oh, without a doubt. You talked about international travel. Were you guys traveling around?
Yeah, so because the industry for the first 5 years was US only, or pretty much US only, there were a couple of conferences. They were in Montreal, Toronto. They used to alternate, so we were doing that. And there were various conferences in Europe. So we had Barcelona, Amsterdam later on, a lot of stuff in London. So there was a lot of traveling involved, which, as with any industry, any business, traveling sometimes is fun and sometimes it's just a real drain.
Well, when it comes to the gambling industry, it has truly, truly made millionaires, even billionaires. I used to do interior design architecture. I was working with a girl, and she was an architect, and her stepdad designed the gambling machines when they went digital. So he made so much money that he bought the New York Knicks at one point.
Wow.
Then he sold it later on. So I got to meet this man, and she's like, "Hey, you want to come hang out with me? We're going to hang out with my parents." I'm like, "Sure." Huge penthouse in Manhattan, overlooking the whole city. And I'm like, "That's your dad?" He goes, yeah, he owns the Knicks. I'm like, "What?" Yeah. So meanwhile, she was very low key, no big deal, nothing. And the gentleman was he was a sweetheart, super nice guy. And then she got married and everything. But the whole deal was that it was through him designing the machines that made him his fortune, right? And then he was able to buy a sports team, if you will. So it was pretty cool when we think about the the opportunities that are there for a business that, if you think about it, was totally illegal to begin with, right? Because gambling was illegal. I mean, it's, when I was a kid, there used to be a Greek sports club on the third floor of a building. And we used to run up there as kids because one of the guys, one of his kids was our friend. We used to run up there, and it was an illegal gambling facility. And all these guys were smoking. It was only men. It was all smoking and stuff like that. And as a little kid, I had no idea. I was just like, oh, this is cool. But they were illegally gambling. But now this is back in 1970 something. Now it's legal. So, but I'm sure there's still illegal gambling games that go on all the time. But it's become mainstream, especially with a place like Las Vegas. And who created it? A gangster.
The mafia. Yeah.
The mafia. And of course, he did a great job. If you look at the movie with Bugsy, how that was a great movie, by the way. And it showed, what went into it. And of course, the only reason he got killed is because his girlfriend, I think it was his girlfriend, she embezzled $1 million, here and there. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's money in every business. It comes back to how, what's the problem, what's the solution? People wanted to gamble, and people wanted to gamble legally,
Right.
and a legal industry came out. It's interesting, as I said, our business was US based or obviously based in the UK, but targeted the US for the first 5 years. The reason it changed from that was the law changed in the US. So in 2006, the Unlawful Internet Gaming Enforcement Act, UIGEA, happened, which didn't make online gambling illegal. It made it illegal for the banks to fund online gambling payments. So it sort of cut gambling off at the knees.
Right.
And everybody decamped to the UK, which is where our sort of next phase of the industry was, or the next phase of the growth was, because the industry decamped to the UK. And it was strange watching the US from the outside, because you had this unholy alliance of Vegas, as in the land-based gambling industry, and on the other side, the church and the far right, it's morally wrong.
Right.
So you had Vegas and the church together, both going, we both hate online gambling. And that's what drove it. That was, so hang on a minute, you got the church and Vegas are on the same side on this one, because obviously Vegas didn't want online gambling because they thought it would kill people coming to Vegas to gamble. So a very strange initial problem.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get into the coaching that you're doing, but if you don't mind, I'm going to share one more video. And this is an event that we talked about. The May event is leading up to the July event. Let's take a look.
Heroes Rising Apex is the highly anticipated business event of the year. This gathering of industry leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, and visionaries promises to be a game-changing experience that will inspire, educate, and provide networking opportunities. Get ready to immerse yourself in a world of innovation, strategy, and collaboration as we embark on an unforgettable journey of learning, growth, and success. Join us in New York on July 14th through the 16th. Go to heroesrisingapex.com for tickets.
Another fun event. I only try to do fun stuff, So you have not been to New York. I think this may be a chance for you to come and join us. What do you think?
I've been to New York, but I've not been to
Vegas. Not Vegas.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, maybe you come to New York and then Vegas.
Sounds good.
Yeah. It's very interesting because most of the time I've ever been to Vegas has been in the summertime, which is the hottest time to go. But being that I love the heat, it was perfect for me. One thing they do in Vegas, they definitely, they say New York doesn't sleep. It's not as
Vegas.
true as Vegas. Vegas 24/7. That's why they don't have windows in the casinos. They have
Or clocks.
beautiful things. They have oxygen coming in. They have unlimited drinks so that you can get drunk and just keep spending your money. So
And no
that's
clocks, and no clocks, so you don't know what time it is.
zero clocks. Right. So let's get into, how did you get into coaching? That's definitely something I want to share with our audience, because this is the coaching call after all, right?
Yeah. So we sold the business about 5 years ago, and so yeah, people write all these brilliant business books, but they never write the last chapter, which is, what do you do after you've sold your business?
Right.
You know, I don't play golf. What am I going to do? So a guy who I know very well, he's a good friend of mine, is a business coach, and he said, you ought to do business coaching and mentoring.
Mm.
And I've referenced this before, the imposter syndrome. And my first thought was, shit, who's going to listen to me? I was just making it up and going along. I can't teach anybody anything. And sort of put it in the corner and left it. And what happened was, a number of friends and contacts that I've got who've got businesses sort of came to me just to ask for advice. You've sold your business. What does it look like? How do you structure it? I've got this business problem. Can you give me 10 minutes to have a chat about it? Blah, blah, blah. And people seem to be getting a benefit out of this. So, maybe I do know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
And actually, what happened sort of around COVID time, obviously we were all locked in at home, nothing to do. So I thought, well, I can't do nothing. I done some voluntary work and stuff like that, but I can't do nothing forever. So I thought, well, people seem to be getting some benefit out of what I'm giving them for free.
Mm.
So how about I try and do this in a sort of paid for situation? So went to the drawing board and thought, okay, well, what can I bring? What's my expertise? And then backwards, what did I need as a business owner, and what would I need as support? And came up with this concept of being what I call a business sounding board, which I sort of pitch halfway between a coach and a mentor. Whereas a coach, I always believe a coach can teach you to do something better. So it might be a sales coach or a presentation coach or a sports coach. Whereas a mentor is somebody who's been there and done it and can advise and go, you've got this bump in the road coming, just keep an eye on that. Or, if you've got this problem, this is how you might solve it. Whereas what I do is I'm there to be an extra pair of eyes and a pair of ears for a business owner. So the great thing about running your own business is you make all the decisions. I've got nobody to tell me what to do. I'm the boss. I can do whatever I want, which is fantastic. However, you haven't got anybody to say, shit, I'm stuck. Or does this sound really stupid? Or I've got 3 brilliant ideas, which is the best one to do? Or I've got this big problem. I've got no idea how to solve it. Or it might be a good problem. It might be, somebody wants to buy my business. What should I do about it? Or even better, I want to buy the competitor down the road. Is this a good idea? Is it a bad idea? How do I go about doing it? All these sort of issues that, as a business owner, we all come across, but we haven't got anybody to sit there and say, can I just bounce this off you? And part of the problem is, so you can't sort of go to your sales manager and go, hey, Dave, I'm thinking of buying a company down the road. What do you think? Because Dave, the sales manager, is first going to think, shit, I bet they've got a sales manager and my job's on the line. It's not a very good idea. Don't do it. But you've also got the other sort of people tend to get advice from, maybe solicitors, maybe accountants, maybe husbands or wives, maybe their friends down the golf club who also have a business. They will all have a level of either conscious or subconscious bias in their advice. And it's what I call, somebody has to tell you your baby is ugly. That I can give best advice or best guidance based from a position of confidentiality, no bias, and just I'm doing it for the benefit of you. Whereas, you might get to the point where actually best advice to you as the business owner is just close it. it ain't going to work. Now, your wife's not going to tell you that, or your husband's not going to tell you that. Your accountant might not tell you that. But also, in the day-to-day sort of normal issues of business life, unless you've got somebody at your side who's been there and done it, got the battle scars, had the sleepless nights, that it's very hard for them to advise or guide because they've not done it. So what I do is I will sit with a client, and most of my meetings, in fact, all of my meetings start with, okay, what do you want to discuss? There's no structure. There's no, like we said before, no 10 modules you have to go through.
Right.
So discuss. And we work from there. And what I will normally do with clients, initially the first sort of discovery call or first session with them, and this is completely stolen from 7 Habits by Stephen Covey, which is
let's not say stolen. You did your research and development, and you borrowed.
Developed and borrowed. So one of the things in 7 Habits is start with the end in mind. So I always start with clients and say, okay, what does perfect look like in a year's time? And you might think, oh, that's an easy question. Then when people think about it, I'd like to sell a business in a year's time, or I'd like to buy another business, or I'd like to get to $1 million worth of sales, or whatever the figure is. And then what we do is we start working backwards and go, okay, well, if you want take $1 million sales as a simple idea. If you want, I want to do $1 million worth of sales, or $1 million worth of profit. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? Well, we'll need some more product, and I'll need a sales director, and I'll need a bigger CRM team. You go, okay, right, let's write those down. Okay, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to, take it really simply. I need a new sales director, right? You're going to write an ad. You're going to write a job spec. And it sort of works backwards in a granular form, and that tends to be the start point with clients. But what I'm doing is I'm not telling them what to do. They're coming up with the answers, which is why I position myself as a sounding board. Because what normally happens is, and again, go back to another simple situation. I've got this problem. Okay, let's talk about it. How could you solve it? Well, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. Well, okay. Which of those is the best one? Well, that's the best one. Well, have you considered this, this, and this? Oh, I haven't thought about that. And they will end up with the solution. And I go, okay. So the next stage is go away and do it. And then the next meeting we'll go, okay, did you do that? You go, well, I did. And the next question then is, okay, what fell out the back of that? I go, oh, well, there's another 5 problems fell out of the back of that. We go, okay, how do we solve that? So that's pretty much how I work with clients. And then the other aspect of working with clients as a business sounding board is being both an accountability partner. So have you done that? And again, business owners, I always compare it to having a cold piece of broccoli on your plate, and you know you should eat it, but you don't do it because you like the burger more. So I'll eat the burger, but I won't eat the broccoli. So it's an accountability partner. Have you done that? And it's also an aspect of, as you grow your business, and all business owners do this, and I did this as well, is you end up either doing stuff you shouldn't be doing as a business owner because you don't recognize you shouldn't be doing that, or you're not doing stuff that you should be doing as a business owner. And it's worse if you started a business and it's grown. As you recruit people, you slice bits of your job off, and that person does that and that person does that. But you end up left with either the stuff you like or the stuff you haven't delegated.
Right.
And actually, if you sit down with somebody and go, you're the business owner, should you be doing that? They go, no, I really shouldn't. You go, okay, find somebody to do it, or don't do it. Well, okay, now you're not doing that. You can do the things you should be doing.
That's right.
So usually sorry, I'm going off on lots of tangents here.
No. I'm with you. I agree 1,000% that as a business owner, you have to assess your role in the business, even if you're a solopreneur, because a solopreneur, if you have family, hey, you can say to your family, I need help with this part. Maybe my 14-year-old is good on social media. Maybe they can do my social media, but let me look at it first. Don't put it out there, because they might put something that's crazy. And you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't represent who I am. So also understanding the representation of your business is important.
Yep.
So there's so many, and you're right, there's so many different aspects. And for me, everything, I'm listening to you and I'm like, that's called replicating yourself, right? That's the hardest thing for people, business owners, to do. In order to be successful, you have to not be at the business.
Yeah.
That's my take, right?
It's a standard thing. It's, you should be working on the business, not in the business. And if you take that to their next level, which is at some point you might want to sell a business, your business is only saleable if it works without you in it. And something I was told recently, which I love, which is do the holiday test on your business. Okay. Can you go on holiday for 2 weeks, turn your phone off, turn your laptop off, and when you come back, is it still running? If it is, you have a sellable business. If it isn't, you haven't got a sellable business yet. And that's where, that's part of the business growth. And again, opens another huge can of worms.
Oh, yeah. But what if you come back and the business is doing better? Then you definitely have to sell it. Maybe to the people who are making it better, right?
I was told by a consultant that came into my business once, get out of the way of the business. You're in the way. Because as business owners, and I had a client who said this week. This week, he said to me, I can't recruit somebody to do this because it's just easier for me just to do it and just give it here, I'll do it. And yes, short term, that may or may not be the case, but long term, it's never going to be the answer. Or you have those business owners who they're the blockage. So every decision has to go through me. Every decision. Or I'm away for 2 weeks, so nothing can happen because I can't approve it. Right. I was told I was in the way of the business because my problem was I'm a shiny new objects ideas person, as lots of us entrepreneurs are. Oh, I've read this thing over the weekend. We need to be doing that Monday morning. And he'd come in and he'd done a brilliant exercise, which I recommend to all my clients and I recommend anybody should do, is get somebody in. And he did a 360 with all the members of the team and then reported back to me. So we didn't report back and said, he said that, she said that. It was sort of themes. Right. And one of the themes was, will you tell Phil to take his stupid ideas and get rid of them or don't bring them to work because they stop us doing the proper work. So I ended up setting up a separate business for my stupid ideas. So they didn't get in the way of the main business. So a lot of the time, I often, and it's the way it happens. I often end up with my clients saying to them, right, I want you to write a roles and responsibilities document for yourself because you have it for all your staff. Right. Why don't you have one for you? And this came for me out of recruiting a number two. Exactly what you just said. How do you duplicate yourself? And I recruited a second in command. And obviously I created a roles and responsibilities for him. But out of the back of it, I had to create a new roles and responsibilities for me so that on one side, I wasn't doing his job. So I wasn't standing on his toes. But on the other side, it's like, okay, if we're not doing all the things he's doing, what should I be doing? Mm-hmm. And it forced me to do exactly what you said, which is working on the business rather than in the business. And I say this to lots of clients, write yourself a roles and responsibilities and so much will drop out of it. Mm-hmm. You'll realize, shit, I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing. And again, everything I talk to clients about, I've done. I've been that person. Our business was 10, 11 years old. We had sort of over £1 million turnover, and I was the one sending invoices out. How insane! On Word and marking them off on an Excel spreadsheet, which again is stupid. But it was one of those roles that Phil, nobody told me, Phil, you shouldn't be doing that until my accountant said, Phil, you really shouldn't be doing that. So
that's why they need you, Phil, because you come in. I can see what you're doing. You come in and most people are doing something, because it's the old adage of, if it ain't broke, why fix it, right? And that's how a lot of businesses who are becoming dinosaurs are not progressing. And when you guys listen, when you hire Phil, I know that he's going to come in and say, well, let's look at what you are doing, because he's done it. He's been in the trenches. He understands that doing the word and doing it this way and doing that, that's the old way. There's nothing wrong with the old way if it works. But what if it worked better this way? And you got 80% more productive because of what Phil is teaching you. So why not hire Phil, right?
Yeah, and this comes into, and then what falls out of this is the whole concept of opportunity cost. So, and again, I pick ideas up from all sorts of places. I don't claim them as my own. It's something I heard somebody else say. Are you doing the $10 an hour job, or the $100 an hour jobs, or the $1,000 an hour jobs? Now, with all due respect to bookkeepers, me sending out invoices was doing the $10 an hour jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm then not doing it, I can now do some of the $100 an hour jobs. And if I can delegate those, I can then start doing the $1,000 an hour jobs. And that's one of the things that often drops out. And going back to something you said about it not being broke, brilliant question for any coaches out there is, why do you do that? And why do you do it like that?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer, and again, I've done this. It's exactly the same as me. So when I set up my business, how did I set up my business and the systems and the processes? Well, that's how we did it when I was employed. So I just copied it, and that's the way to do it. So the answer is, why do you do it like that? Well, either we've always done it like that, or that's the way the industry does it. Neither of which are a very good answer.
Sometimes you have to be a disruptor, right? You have to disrupt the normal, if you will, to make changes. Because if you look at all industries, anything that's iPhone, that was a disruptor, right? Computers, disruptors. Automobiles, disruptors. Planes, disruptors. Everything that changes sometimes goes through a pain point, but they do disrupt what's happening. And to be aggressive, but to be smart about it, to have a cognitive thought that this is going to work, but to have a plan of action. I think that's also an incredible feat that we all need to have a great coach like yourself, to be there to like you said, bounce ideas of, is this good or is this better? What do you think of this? And I've done the same thing with my own coach, and I'll say, hey, I think I want to do this. He goes, have you thought of that? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You're right. So thank you. So we all, and I'm sure you have a coach too, because I never want to be with a coach who doesn't have a coach, someone who they bounce their ideas off. Because sometimes, and here's the cool thing about the coaches I work with, they might be coaching me, but at the same time, I'm coaching them, because they'll say something and I'll go, I like that, but what if I did it this way? Then they'll turn around and go, I like that better. So all of a sudden, it's that synergy that we're working together with, right?
Yeah, and I've picked lots and lots of things up from my clients, and some of it comes out in stories like I've been telling you. A client said this, a client did that, but also I'm learning as a coach, because I'm thinking, oh, that didn't work very well. I won't. Either that was a great solution for them, or that didn't work. So I'll come at it at a different angle. So I'm learning, even if they're not coaching me, I'm learning from them. And I have a couple of coaches who, whilst they're not formally my coach, they are coaches, and we chuck things around, and I get benefit from them and they get benefit from me, because it's just somebody looking at it from a different angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a lot of fun, my friend.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it too.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, the fact that you went from being a shy boy to someone who is impacting people's lives to help them see their dreams come to fruition. Because a lot of people have dreams, but that's all they are, right? And we have dreams, but sometimes it's only on our pillows. When we take those dreams off of our pillows and put them into actions, they can change lives, not only ours, but the world.
You're absolutely right, and one of the things I often advise people, and sort of podcasts like this say, what's your one piece of advice? And my one piece of advice is always go with your gut, because if you don't go, it might be a business idea, whatever it might be. You obviously do the research and the SWOT analysis or whatever you want to do, but if your gut's saying this is the way to go, I would always say go for it, because if you don't, all you'll ever do is think, oh, I wish I'd done that. But if you do and it works, fantastic, you are right. If it doesn't, then okay, but you gave it a go and you learn from it, and you think, oh, well, I mean, we did that. We had, because I'm a shiny new objects person, we had lots of cul-de-sacs we went down that we sort of tried for 3 months. Thought, nope, that's not working. Scrap that. We'll do something else. But if you don't, and all that'll happen is somebody else will do it, and you go, hey, that's my idea.
Yeah.
You go, well, you should have done it then.
That's right.
So that, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's turning dreams into, it's easy to say it, but it's actually, okay. And the simple thing, people look at it and go, oh, it's too big. You go, okay, well, let's just do the first step. What's the first step? Okay, the first step is, well, okay, let's take the first step and see what happens.
It's always got to take that first step. You don't know. You can't climb without that first step, right?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Phil, thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge with us today. I am super happy, and I'm going to send you links to for you to come to New York. I'd love for you to be with us.
I'll try and get there.
All right, my friend. Have an exceptional day. Everybody, make today a great one. Take care.